lights are bright.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
The pressure is real.
Shot clock at 10. Murray against Davis. Lobs down low for Sharp, and he has his shot rejected by Murray. Boyle! He just blocked the shot of a 7-foot.
Today, the lights are bright.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
The pressure is real.
Shot clock at 10. Murray against Davis.
Today, the lights are bright.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina.
Today, the lights are bright.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
The pressure is real.
Shot clock at 10. Murray against Davis. Lobs down low for Sharp, and he has his shot rejected by Murray. Boyle! He just blocked the shot of a 7'5" human. Are you kidding me?
And the stories are bigger than the scoreboard.
Frederick plays it in at the buzzer. That's a win. Unbelievable. I don't believe it.
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody, welcome into Gamecock Pod live for July the 21st or 23rd, episode number 2051, where the Gremlins are not cooperating with the opening today. So, well, shoot, let's just wing it. So away we go. Welcome to season 11 of Gamecock Pod Live, a part of the Gamecock Pod family of podcasts, along with Gamecock Pod Daily, Sunday morning coffee talk during the season. On Sunday morning during college football season, we have the morning after, where I give my hot takes on the game, on the SEC, and on the top games around the nation. And then every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have the Garnet and Black Town Hall, which is a live interactive Zoom call. It's kind of like going down to your neighborhood bar where everybody knows your name. Where have I heard that before? And we all do what we like to do. People eat their dinner, people have a cocktail or a beer, or we just sit around and talk about the Gamecocks. People get to give their takes, ask questions. We do that for about an hour. Then we go to overtime, which is unrecorded. We put that up for our VIP subscribers. But the bonus is being on the live call, because overtime is where the real scoop gets dropped. So if you would like this podcast every single day and the extras, you can get it all for about the cost of one trip to Starbucks per month. Go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Gamecock Pod. All lower letters. If you want the Garnet and Black Town Hall, you have to be a VIP subscriber. You can sign up for an annual membership and save 2 months off the cost. Or you can sign up for a 7-day free trial membership just to give it a try. You can find it on all the socials at Gamecock Pod, at K Alsep, on X, on Instagram. And hit the like button here. Follow us. We're on the drive for 1,000 subscribers. We're going to make it, and then we're going to take off. We've got new and exciting things coming. And let's welcome back into the program for the second time. It's almost like we're Wonder Twins here with our Garnet Gamecock stuff. I actually have my beautiful Holderness and Bourne pullover from B.F. Skinner, located in the heart of the historic Vista. Brent Skinner, the best in the business with the Gamecocks. I can't wait to see. Look, if you don't like the Nike color, Walker, everybody's bitching about Nike. It's not Garnet. It's not. Well, buy black, or I'll go to BF Skinner, go to the website, go see Brent in the Vista and get a Holderness and Bourne pullover. They are luxurious, worth the cost, and for my money, better than Under Armour or Nike. Walker, welcome back in. How have you been, my friend?
I've been good. Was able to get myself a hands on some of the Nike stuff, that black shirt I was wearing last time. Haven't got a Garnet one yet, so I haven't been able to see it in person. I'm definitely will have to use some of my graduation money from this summer to maybe get myself something Garnet Nike before I head to college. But yeah, I've been good.
Outstanding. All right. So it's talking week. The SEC converged upon Tampa, Florida, which was the place where I started my career after I graduated from college. And for the first time. And the most noteworthy thing, I think, to come out of SEC Media Days is Lane Kiffin has deleted all of his social media accounts. What in the world is going on?
I know. Hell's freezing over. It's crazy.
Hell has frozen over officially. There is no doubt about that. I just got a feeling once we get in the season, that's not going to last. But if it is, Lane Kiffin's Twitter account, rest in peace. It was very entertaining. And maybe he'll just be a lot hotter on the mic. Usually he has no interest in being in front of the microphone and generally does not say anything interesting. I'll be interested to see what he has to say today, and maybe it'll just be he'll be dropping zingers every week during his weekly press conference and his teleconference call.
Yeah, it seems like there's not much more he can do to piss a lot of people off. So whatever it is, I mean, it's kind of hard to expect at this point. But I will say I'm looking forward to LSU going to Oxford. Like, they need to bring in the National Guard for that game with everything that's been going on. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, the trash talk kind of build up and finally reach a climax.
No doubt. So Shane Beamer, Lenore Sellers, Nicholas Harbor, and Peyton Williams, they wrapped up the day on Tuesday. Beamer, the final coach to speak. I think Nick Harbor stole the day after a radio hit with him seeing Stephen Garcia over there and asked him if they could pray together, and he hugged him and they prayed. Stephen Garcia in a battle, in a fight with cancer. I thought that was awesome. Just your thoughts on Shane Beamer, who lauded a lot of the good stuff he had done at South Carolina, but really none of it had to do with winning either. Your thoughts?
Firstly, with Nick Harbor, just a testament to the character he has. I mean, praise God, just a beautiful thing to do. And, whether you heard it from Nick Harbor just talking about the team in general, the way they've just put their head down and worked, the way that Coach Beamer has described him, his work ethic was the thing he really brought up during the press conference, was that he's always putting 110%, trying to work harder than everyone else around him. First one in, last one to get out. I mean, that's the type of leader you're hoping for on a college football team, right? Especially with the day of age of the transfer portal and the young recruits coming in, and a lot of the younger receivers we have now. Just a testament to the character of Nick Harbor. And I've always been of the opinion, every year, mainly the last 2 years, was like, well, when is Nick Harbor going to break out? And, I was always of the opinion that could a breakout season happen? Yes. But I was more so kind of like, this is a guy who never played wide receiver until college. I don't expect 1 year to be, you can tell he's never played wide receiver. And the next year, all of a sudden, he's this national wide receiver of the year candidate. I've always expected a little bit of a gradual improvement, especially in the SEC. And I think we've seen that over the past couple of years. I mean, even when you just look at the stat sheets, but also just the consistency in the plays that he was able to bring for South Carolina last season. And I think, if anything, the pattern shows we should just expect an even bigger step up this year. Does that mean an 1,000-yard season, 1,200-yard season? I think that's the big tell. It certainly helps that we have a Kendall Briles as our offensive coordinator, if you ask me. But next, with Coach Beamer, the thing about SEC Media Days is I always kind of relate it in the same way like Thanksgiving is to Christmas. Like, it's fun, it's great, but, after you sleep off all the food, what's coming around the corner, right? Like, that's what you're really thinking about. And that's the same thing for SEC Media Days. And, like, I love Media Days a lot because, I'm not a big X's and O's person, right? Like, I'm not good. I'm not going to be the best at breaking down an offense or a defense. I'm more of a Jimmy's and Joe's. I'm more of a gut feeling type of guy when it comes to my predictions for football and stuff. So I've been busy trying to predict the SEC order of finish. I've been going through that about a million times, trying to think about how I want to put it. But, and that's why I personally love the SEC Media Days as much as I do. And you can just tell. I think you can just tell that this reminds me a lot of that 2024 feeling from SEC Media Days. Like Coach Beamer said, I think the quote was, "Nobody thinks we're worth the shoot. That's okay. All the guys are back. They're a year older." And, I think a lot of people were like, well, I think Coach Beamer made a comment saying, well, they picked us to finish high last year, and we have all the same players that made them pick us high last year, but now they're probably going to pick us low. And a lot of people were like, well, you went 4-8 last year. But my counterpoint would be like, we didn't go 4-8 because of those guys. Did they obviously make their mistakes? Of course. But I would point to a ton of other things before the main guys that Coach Beamer was really referring to. So I definitely agree with Coach Beamer. I am on the much more positive side for this coming season. And, just the mentality you got where they're just putting their head down, they're working, that they understand the outside perception, but they're not listening to it, right? Which, as any program should, they should, keep their heads, as focused and as locked on as they can. But I think you see that intensity, not just with their expectations, but also with how they've practiced. Like this offseason, you can tell there's been a lot of growth, of course, trying to install an entire new offensive system, multiple new positional coaches. However, Lenore said this is the only offseason he's had where it's got harder as the weeks have gone on. I thought that was pretty interesting. You finally bring in a college-style offensive coordinator, and although it's simplified and everything, Lenore Sellers is still working to, I think, level up his passing ability by any means. Because I saw, a conversation at one point. It was like, well, Lenore Sellers is probably getting into like Jamarcus Russell or Anthony Richardson. And, I'm of the opinion that Lenore is a much better passer than those, has the potential to be a much better passer than those two, and that he could end up being like a Josh Allen type when it comes to passing ability as well. Kind of that similar. Definitely a better scrambler than Josh Allen. Look at Lenoris. But I'm very high on what Lenoris could do this year. And just hearing it just – the thing about me this offseason, kind of to wrap it up, is – obviously, you have to see the production on the field. That's why we play the games. But I've made the point that everything on paper is adding up to where we should have a very good year. And I think the comments from the players this week, from Coach Beamer, it just further cements my good feeling about the season we're going to have in 2026.
So Paul Feinbaum, my guy Jordan Kay at Go Gamecocks in the State, interviewed Paul Feinbaum, and I'll just read his comment on Mike Shula. Paul Feinbaum, I covered Mike Shula as a player and as a head coach, and I knew the day he was hired, he'd be a disaster. I don't know why Shane Beamer didn't know that. But according to the story, to Feinbaum, going from Shula to Kendall Briles is upgrading from a camping trip to a stay at the Four Seasons. The program is in better shape this year because Briles is such a good coach, Feinbaum added. There are opportunities there, but you've got to figure out ways to close games, and that was the issue. That has been the theme, is to finish. Shane Beamer was quick to point out the fact that in 6 of South Carolina's 8 losses, they were either in the lead, tied, or down by 6 or 7 points going into the fourth quarter. And let's call it like it is. They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory several times, mostly due to the gross incompetence of Mike Shula. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I think there has been a buzz about Kendall Briles at media days, about Jordan Rodgers saying that is probably the best hire in the offseason, and he loves the fit of Kendall Briles with Lenore Sellers. Just looking at KJ Jefferson, what he did with him. Cole Kublik pointed out, hey, 42 sacks last year. You can't run any offense if the offensive line doesn't give you a chance. Not to mention the fact that the run game made no rhyme or reason after Rocket Sanders left, and I still don't know why they spent all that money on Rasul Faison, because he was not worth it. Just the Alabama game. That's one loss right there on that pass. What was that, second play of the game? Good Lord. But nobody's picking Lenore Sellers this year. Last year, it was Lenore Sellers and Arch Manning, and Lenore Sellers. It was Austin Simmons at Ole Miss. And Trinidad Chambliss said, hey, I'm crashing the party. But for me, now all the rage is on the new guys. It's on Byron Brown from USF and Sam Levitt at Arizona State, who's never faced a good defense in his life. But for me, you know who the 2 most experienced SEC quarterbacks are? I'm gonna let you name them.
I know Lenore Sellers is one of them.
He is, and the other one is Marcel Reed. They've played and started in more SEC games than anybody else. Arch Manning's only played 1 year. Trinidad Chambliss has played 1 year. John Mateer, 1 year. Gunnar Stockton's going into his 2nd year as a starter. And Sam Levitt and Byron Brown, they don't know what it's like to face an SEC defense. And just like Mateer, Byron Brown may set the world on fire the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, but after that, when the film gets out, it's not happening. Hugh Freeze didn't recruit that good. And by the way, Cam Coleman is now on the 40 acres about 20 miles away from where I'm living with Arch Manning. So I have Sellers as the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback. I picked my top 8. I have Trinidad Chambliss 1. I went with Arch Manning 2 because Texas, nobody will have a better supporting cast than Arch Manning. But Jakarius Pete, Kojo Poku, and those new offensive linemen, 9 transfers, 14 new offensive linemen, 48 combined years of collegiate experience, 350 something games played, 206 starts, the most experienced offensive line in college football as a unit. Now, most of them have never done it in the SEC, but this is not the case where blue chip linemen come to South Carolina and get worse every year anymore with Randy Clements and Jason Smith. So I kind of got off track there, but Shane Beamer, one comment that caught me was about an offensive lineman and a new one, and is about Darius Gray. Darius Gray is now 6'3", 305, according to Shane Beamer. Said he is a big, big guy, built guy, super athletic guy. And I think that is great news. But the best news is Jacarius Peak. He's getting close to being 100% even before preseason practice starts. And that is huge. And Cole Kublik and others have talked about that for sure.
Yeah, certainly when it comes to the offensive line, it just feels like all the potential is there, right? Like individually, like a certain player here, a certain player there. Darius Gray coming in here. If he is really ready to start at the SEC level, like people say there's potential for him, I think that definitely helps some of the placement issues or placement questions among our offensive line. So that'll be a big story to follow when it comes to freshmen coming into preseason camp. But you got to think, you made a great point. The experience on this line, when it comes to the amount of snaps played in college football, is unreal compared to what we've seen in the past in Columbia. And I've made this the question on my show. It's not how good will this offensive line be, because they can be really good. It's how quickly can they gel. And, looking at Coach Clements, one of the reasons he was the number one coach in the SEC, according to Matrix Analytical, being that there's a big jump in performance from year one, or from the year before he got there to the first year there under Coach Clements. I also think it also really helps that Kendall Briles, who's coached with him in multiple stops, is here in Columbia. It kind of helps speed up that process, if anything. And, of course, Jason Smith being a great addition to that coaching staff as well. But I think a big issue for a lot of South Carolina fans is really just, you got to see it to believe it, right? With everything you've seen with the offensive line under Coach Beamer, as much as it's a new coaching staff, new players, I think a lot of South Carolina fans who might be a little bit more cautious to jump on the Shane train again might be using that as a reason. I understand from a personal reason. But the thing I still have to find myself wrapping my head around it is, it's hard to have the expectations that I think I'm going to have for the season, or that a lot of very positive people are going to have when you come off a 4-8 season, right? Like that, things like that don't happen that often, especially in the SEC. Like, you don't see a huge jump, but I think I still have to wrap my head around the fact that it's just the offense is so different. The offense is so different. I mean, it is completely night and day, and that's not exaggerating. If anything, I'm understating how big of a change that occurred this offseason with the coaching staff, with the players. So I think it's going to be a lot to look forward to. As much as we talked about pass protection with the offensive line, I'm going to be very interested to see how well we're going to be able to run block, right? Because look at the Kendall Briles offenses with KJ Jefferson, some of the best ones that he's coached. The ground game was like iconic, 2,000, 3,000 rushing yard seasons. And that, of course, if you're able to run the ball with Sellers, with Fuller, Clark, whoever else in that running back room, I mean, that just sets up the pass game even better. So run blocking is something I'm also going to be looking very interested at whenever we obviously in the first two games, but especially against Mississippi State and Alabama, which, of course, is a pretty good front seven.
No doubt. So I thought the most encouraging comment from Nick Harbor was about Lenore Sellers. And Harbor said that Sellers, he has become the vocal leader of the team, that he commands the team. He runs the 7-on-7. He runs the drills. And when they don't get it right, he calls them out. And nope, we're going to do that rep over. we are going to do it perfectly. That he's become a vocal leader, not just in the huddle, but on the field, commanding the offense, and that he has command of the offense, and that they watch film together. And, we said last time that this should be Lenora Sellers' best supporting cast, the most talent that they have had. And so I did want to mention that before transitioning to defense, which the offense is certainly the most talked about because you have a new offensive staff. Sean Elliott and Mike Furry are the only guys back, and all Mike Furry does is recruit and sign 4-star wide receivers. But the defense, unlike the offense under Shane Beamer, you have stability and continuity with the system and with the coaching staff. Clayton White now going into his 6th year. He's been there from the beginning with Shane Beamer and Torian Gray. Those are the only 3 guys that started the 2021 season as far as the full-time coaches. And Clayton White has quietly become one of the best defensive coordinators in the SEC. There was a point in 2023 I thought he was going to be gone. Then they had an open date, and he added a wrinkle with the 3-3-5. Then they hired Travian Robertson, who has been phenomenal as a coach, a developer, a guy who's resurrected guys' careers coming in from the transfer portal. I mean, you can talk about DeAndre Jules. You can talk about Gabriel Brownlow Dendy, who will likely be a starter, a former 5-star. And now he's signing 4-star defensive tackles from his home state of North Carolina. Deion Barnes is the only newcomer. But just your thoughts on the continuity of the coaching staff. And Torian Gray is now a $1 million assistant and the co-defensive coordinator, which prevented James Franklin from bringing him back to his alma mater of Virginia Tech.
Yeah, so firstly, with the comment on Lenoris's leadership, because I don't want to forget about that. Very, very encouraging to hear, of course, because especially I feel like vocal leadership, player leadership is something I think we lacked last year. I think you could tell it just watching the games that we didn't have that leadership in that really that initiative on the sidelines that we had in 2024. So Lenoris is obviously, as the quarterback, as the star player of the team, is someone you're hoping for. Nick Harbor, I think, is someone you definitely expected to take a step up as one of the older guys in the room. But I want to make a quick note on defense with Peyton Williams. Peyton Williams is a guy, came in unexpected against Tennessee in 2022 after Nicky Mwari gets ejected. Still think that was a pretty bad call. But anyways, comes in, takes some slight steps up each and every year. And he's always been a guy to me that's pretty consistent. Like, he doesn't have a ton of super explosive plays like Nick, but also doesn't have a ton of busted coverage plays as well. So I think the big message for him this year was just stepping up that level of play, maybe increasing the amount of explosive plays like we saw a little bit from him with his interceptions last year. But you heard about it in spring practice. He was taking a step up on the field and off the field, and that was the expectation for him. So I personally, it was one of my biggest excitements about him being announced as one of the players to come to SEC Media Days. I think that was a huge tell about where the leadership is, not just on this defense, but also on a young secondary. To have a guy like that in your secondary to be able to lead those younger guys, I think that's very important, and it definitely helps. It definitely helps the defense, just because, there's a lot of young guys. J'Zavien Currence, Tristan Lewis, Koski Barnes, a lot of David Busey is a little bit – he has a few years at Carolina now, but still a little bit of a younger guy. But just a guy who's going to be able to help hold down the middle of that backfield in the secondary is something that I was really appreciative to see kind of develop over the offseason in Columbia. But you're right, with this coaching staff on defense, it feels really night and day. Like the storyline with the offensive coaching staff and the defensive coaching staff is completely different. With Deion Barnes, the production he had with Abdul Carter, Chop Robinson, it's clear he was one of the best ed coaches in the country before coming to Carolina, and hopefully with Dylan Stewart and all the guys we have in Columbia and continue to recruit in Columbia, he can continue, if not increase, on that reputation. Travian Robertson, you said everything perfectly about him. There's not really much I can add on. I think Jordan Dove did a good job filling in for Travian Robertson last year, but you have to think, last year, when we struggled a bit at, stopping that inside run, not being able to tackle, especially against Missouri was probably the main highlight I would make with that game. You got to think Travian Robertson not being there definitely played a part in it, at least it didn't help. It didn't help your situation with everything going on in 2025. So of course, so grateful to God that he was able to recover, and it's good to have him back for this season. But my thing about this defense is, did they take a step back last year? Yes. Was it expected? Of course. You lose guys like Nicky Minwari and all the guys, and your linebackers. I mean, it was expected. But do I think they take as big of a step back as a lot of people seem to think they have? No. I mean, I thought they did pretty well. Did they have their issues sometimes, especially in like a man coverage? They got beat quite a few times, like Virginia Tech's wide receivers, Clemson's wide receivers. Were able to get past them. Sometimes those were some disappointing plays. Just felt like we couldn't get the pass rush off quick enough. Certainly didn't help that Dylan Stewart was injured. The linebackers, of course, young, had a lot of potential, very athletic, very versatile. But, of course, they were learning. It's their first year starting. But I also just don't think it helps that they had to be on the field as much as they did. I think if we had an offense from 2024, the defense from 2025, maybe wouldn't have put up the exact same numbers as that 24 squad, but I think much closer to it than what a lot of people would have given them credit for. And, I see a lot of offseason rankings. Like I saw the Crane and Kane show, Jake Crane, David Kane. South Carolina is not in either of their top 10 defenses in the SEC. And I looked at that and I was like, wow, okay. If you're going to blame our 4-8 record on any part of the team last year, I really don't think you should blame it on the defense. I think that'd be probably the last place you want to go to blame it. So if they want to doubt South Carolina's defense this year, just like they probably did in 2024, and then they definitely did in 2025, although they were a little bit right about it, not as right as I think they probably expected to be. Definitely that 4-8 record was much more contributing, much more in cause of that offense. They want to doubt us again in 2026. I mean, hey, we do pretty good whenever we're not expected to do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the biggest thing is just South Carolina, because they had all the players that they had. Even though, like you mentioned, you lose the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, you lose Nicky Minwari, you lose TJ Sanders, Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley, even Bam Martin Scott, Demetrius Knight, and Debo Williams. Right, you lost a ton of experience, and you didn't really bring in a ton of experience. South Carolina this year got older in the transfer portal. They had some players on campus that have had time to develop, and you bring in a 5-star like Julian Walker. But let's face it, the SEC is a line of scrimmage league. Shane Beamer said in a Tuesday afternoon radio hit that they have at least 6 defensive tackles that are going to play this year. And I think that is Gabriel Brownlow-Dendy, who's just a mountain of a guy, 6'3", 310, a 5-star. Troy Pikes, 6'2", 6'3", 295, 300. Walker, are you still with us on the at least on the audio?
Yeah, I'm still with you on the audio.
All right. Tomiwa DeRozier, he comes in, transfer from Illinois. who was third team All Big Ten. Kelby Collins, DeRozier, a fifth-year player. Gabriel Brownlow-Dendy, a fifth-year player. Pikes, a fourth-year player. Kelby Collins, a fourth-year player who started his career at Florida and then went to Alabama, a four-star guy. Jordan Thomas, 6'5", 316, a transfer from Georgia who is a high four-star guy who's a third-year player. And then kind of a unicorn in Noah Clark, 6'5", 345, a true freshman from Durham, North Carolina. I think those are the six, but let's not forget that last season, during the middle of the season, Caleb Williams was getting ready to play, and he breaks his leg in practice. And let's not omit Aiden Harris, another four-star guy who just absolutely blew up the West offensive line in the All-America Bowl in San Antonio. And Christian Ingram, 6'6", 310, who you beat Michigan and Southern Cal and Kentucky for him. And that was Mark Stoops, a defensive guy. So this is a loaded unit.
You make a great point about this interior defensive line. The D tackles here, the depth might be the most underrated in the country. You like you said, kind of to break it down, I guess, into two sections. You have the kind of the starter guys like Gabriel Brownlow-Dendy. That's an expected starter. Tamiwa DeRozier, I think he's going to do some big things this year. You've heard some good talk about Jordan Thomas and, him coming from Georgia. Kelby Collins, obviously a high blue chipper, got a ton of experience with the Tide and is coming here as a senior year. But, these freshmen, I think there's a lot of potential for freshmen to get some snaps this year. And I think in the defensive line could be a very good example of that. Noah Clark with the heads he's been turning during practice. You make a great point about Caleb Williams, Christian Ingram, Aiden Harris. I think the depth is something that I don't think we're going to have to worry about as much as I think some people might expect this year. I think the question might be what one or two names are really going to take a step up. Because in 2024, you had TJ Sanders and Tonka Hemingway were your two big guys. I mean, Boogie Huntley, Nick Barrett, they did some things, but there's really TJ Sanders and Tonka. But the question this year is, if you had to ask me, I'd probably say it's Gabriel Brownlow-Dendy and Tamiwa DeRozier. I think that'd be my two predictions. But whoever it is, you need to have guys on the interior of that defensive line to help create pressure. Because if they can't get any pressure on the inside and make some plays they did, like we've seen over the past couple of years under Coach White's defense, then the edge rushers, it's only going to make their job even harder, and then in return make the secondary's job even harder as well. So I think pass rush is going to be something that we're definitely going to be trying to be building on just as much as run blocking this offseason.
No doubt. So Dylan Stewart. So Shane Beamer kind of is he sandbagging? Because I was on my way back from Dallas. I think I was maybe in between Waco and Round Rock, and Lenora Sellers is on Sirius XM radio, and they asked him about Dylan Stewart, and he's like, what's the one thing you've seen from Dylan Stewart from last year? And Lenora Sellers said he's even faster than he was last year. But then Shane Beamer, well, he's still on schedule next week. He'll take another step in his process. He talked about Jacarius Peak doing the 40 reps of the lift and row, or
I think it was like the press and lift or press and work or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. It was something where evidently that's really a grind.
I think it's the walk and press.
Walk and press, right. You got to be walking up the weight room floor, walking and pressing weight above your head, a heavy amount of weight, and he did 40 reps. By all accounts, I've been told he will be 100% by the time preseason practice gets underway. But you hear Lenore Sellers say one thing, Beamer continues to say another thing. And with a back, for him not to be, I mean, we don't know if he's full go or not. It's kind of very concerning. And I mean, we'll see what happens. By all accounts, they're optimistic, but I just don't know why this was not taken care of immediately after the season. But then again, they didn't do it with Josiah Thompson's injury either. So, I mean, I think the best news is Clint Haggard got promoted out of his job, and he's no longer the head football trainer.
Yeah, with Dylan Stewart, it feels like the kind of, like I said, I'm kind of a big gut feeling type of person. It feels like the pathway for Dylan Stewart seems like it's a little bit different from Jacarius Peak when, it feels like the message might have been that it's kind of on the same path. And I still think there's a chance that they're both ready by week 1. I'm not trying to say that, Coach Beamer's trying to, misinform or whatever, or mislead people. I think there still is a possibility for him being fine by week 1. It just feels like maybe because it's just with Stewart's just being a different injury or whatever it may be, it feels like, considering the fact, Jacarius Peak, I'm pretty sure he had to have surgery on his injury, Dylan Stewart said he didn't have surgery on his, and, Stewart supposedly was starting to work through the healing process months before Peak's injury even happened. So I don't know if it's a situation where, him trying to work out naturally and get back into shape and he aggravates it a little. And it's one of those type of injuries, because that's definitely frustrating. And one of those where it's understandable where you might not be able to be as clear as a timeline, because anytime you're trying to get better, it might be one of those things where you might accidentally lift something just a little bit too heavy, do something too fast. Of course I don't know the detail on a back injury, but whenever they say back injury, that's things I start to put into my head, at least non-surgical or injuries that are, not surgeries aren't required. But I think that's been kind of a big thing this offseason. I think that's why, we saw so much competition during spring practice in the edge room that, remember last time I was here on the show, I said worst case scenario, they're not ready by week 1. Maybe they take the game against Kent State off, against Towson off, get 1 or 2 more weeks before the Mississippi State game. And of course, you want to get them back in kind of up to speed before you start playing other SEC opponents. But I think that's why, I think the thing about our edge room is Dylan Stewart's obviously the guy. However, after Dylan Stewart, it kind of dropped off to where there's not a ton of starting experience. I think that was why Caleb Herring was such a big portal addition for us, help buff up the depth in that edge room, not just from a player numbers perspective, but also SEC starting experience. And, there's still talk about whether, maybe Julian Walker can take a jump ahead of him. And if Julian Walker does, or, Anthony Addison or whoever it may be, if they do, I think that's just a big, big sign of proof that they're ready to do it if the coach is really confident enough to do that. But if not, I still see a lot of those other edge guys getting a ton of snaps. But thinking about Dylan Stewart, I think it's just one of those things where I think whether we see him on the field or not during preseason practice and how much we see him doing and how much he's participating, I think that's really going to be start being the point where we get a more realistic time frame from the outside perspective about Dylan Stewart's recovery.
No doubt. So, I mean, linebackers, I don't really think that needs to be addressed because you've got your top 3 back, Justin Okoronkwo, I think is the best linebacker on South Carolina's roster. Fred J.R. Johnson and Sean Murphy, who really came on towards the end of the season. I mean, when you're going for linebacker 4 and 5 and you've got a guy like A.J. Holloway and Donovan Darden, I think that is set. I don't trust anybody more than I trust Torian Gray with the secondary. And so here's the question. how quickly does J'Zavien Currence ascend the defensive depth chart? Because I got nothing against David Busey. I think Peyton Williams will be the vocal leader back there, but at 6'4", 215, when I look at the young guys like DeMarcus Leach, who's 6'3", 200, behind Bakari Swain and Judge Collier, Jalua Solomon, they're still trying to get healthy. Koski Barnes, 6'2", 210. Nickel, Gerald Kilgore, Quashid Scott, Jaquel Hallman, Cedric Cisse. Then where does Tristan Lewis play, who's probably the biggest surprise? He's almost 6'3", 210. But Currence and Kendall Daniels, both 6'4", 215, both star players. Everything you hear is Currence is that dude. How quickly does he ascend the depth chart, in your opinion?
I think the safety room and also, the nickel room, I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest storylines heading into preseason camp and throughout preseason camp. And not from a position, I guess, of worry so much, because like you, I give Coach Gray more benefit of the doubt than probably any other coach on the team, but just because you want to figure out who's starting, right? Kind of just to hit on the nickel question real quick, Quashid Scott, Gerald Kilgore. I like what Quashid Scott brings in as a transfer. I think he's a little bit better and more of the pass coverage type of a nickelback. Gerald Kilgore, I think, is more similar to his brother in being a big guy and helping him in run support. But I'm not saying that Gerald Kilgore can't do pass coverage, Quashid Scott can't do run blocking, but I think that's where their strengths lie. I think a lot of people, if they had to make a guess right now, would probably guess Quashid Scott starting. But I'm very high on what Gerald Kilgore can do. I like the flashes that he showed last year as a reserve safety, a backup safety. So I think he'll find a way on the field somewhere. So maybe if he doesn't get nickel, maybe it's where, either he's the backup nickel and they kind of split a bunch of snaps, or maybe he might have some plays at safety because he was kind of that backup safety last year. I think that's something that definitely shouldn't be ruled out by any means. But with the few names you said, David Busey is definitely probably the leading guy at this moment with the experience he has at South Carolina under Coach Gray. Already kind of being farther along down that road. But like you said, J'Zavien Currence, one of those, if there's a freshman that's going to start on this team, Currence is probably one of the 2 or 3 names you're going to mention, right? During spring practice, Coach White mentioned he's past the ABCs of college football. He's at the DEFs. And that's definitely a big thing, that he's already there before you head into the summer, where, a lot of that is where you start getting to work on those mental notes and everything. So, and just the athletic ability, right? You go look at the high school tape. It's very impressive what he did at Rock Hill. So I think the first 2 weeks against Kent State and Towson, like I've said for quite a while since the schedule came out, I think they're almost like preseason NFL games. You work out your offensive kinks, but you also get a good feel for what your depth chart is going to look like heading into the game against Mississippi State at home under the lights. And I think it's 7:15 p.m. I think is the start time Eastern. So could it be a thing where Currence wins the starting job and is the starter against Mississippi State? Yes. I mean, South Carolina has played freshman safeties against SEC opponents before. Could it be a thing where maybe David Busey's starter and then J'Zavien Currence takes a spot by week 4, week 5? I mean, that the potential is there as well for that scenario, because the question the thing for Currence could just be getting reps under the lights in front of all those fans. So I think I see J'Zavien Currence playing at least somewhere on the field this year. Tristan Lewis, I think a little bit similar, maybe more just kind of that reserve kind of guy. Maybe if we're up by a lot more points or, someone got hurt, I think that's where you might see Tristan Lewis, as talented as he is. I just Judge Collier, Bakari Swain, they usually stay on our corners usually stay on the field for a large majority of the game. And they're definitely our 2 lockdown corners, starters, without a doubt. But J'Zavien Currence, the opportunity is there. The opportunity is there for him and for a ton of other guys like Kendall Daniels, like Jaquel Hallman. I mean, the opportunity is there. It's just who's able to take it is really the big question.
Walker, great stuff as always. Tell everybody where they can follow you and see your stuff on the Voice of College Football Network.
Yes, thank you, Keith. So if you want to have weekly shows Monday nights at 7 p.m., join me at South Carolina at the Voice of College Football. You can find me on YouTube as well as Spotify. That's where you get all our updates on Gamecock football. But if you want more than just weekly shows, I encourage you to follow me on X and Instagram, WGSports_CFB. Once again, WGSports_CFB for by the day, by the hour, and by the minute updates on all things Gamecock football.
Walker, thank you so much. Be well, my friend, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road. Great stuff.
Of course, appreciate you having me on. Go Gamecocks.
You got it. All right, so we go from football and we bring in our resident's fellow Brave fan.
Yep.
Braves pull one out against the Padres last night. Michael Sauls from Go Gamecocks and the State. And Michael, welcome in. How's your summer going? And I imagine last week kind of a monkey wrench got thrown into it.
Yeah. Good to be back, Keith. Thanks for having me. Good summer so far. Got back from Tampa yesterday. I was at SEC Media Days alongside our wonderful coworker Jordan Kay on Monday and Tuesday, and drove back yesterday talking football. But yeah, no, the monkey wrench that was the Maddy McDaniel announcement. That was a fun one to deal with. I was dog sitting. I was driving to go let the dogs out at lunch, and that notification popped up on my phone. I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now. So I put the car into sport mode and allegedly broke some traffic laws getting to the house, and got the laptop out and fired it up. But yeah, I was a bit of a surprise. I'm sure we'll get into it more here in a second.
All right, so I can't thank you enough for popping in with us and waiting patiently in the green room. Hopefully you were served a refreshing beverage and some good snacks there from the buffet. So here's the first question. If you had to pick between totally shocked or just surprised that this news happened, which would you say you were?
I'd say I'm somewhere in between, simply because I'm admittedly not super plugged in with the Maddy McDaniel camp. So I wasn't expecting it. So I'd say between the two, but also I don't know. Like, I feel like the fact that it was announced and the fact that it's happening maybe I'm not as shocked because Ashton Watkins took last year off. So I feel like if this was a first, I'd be more shocked. But in terms of the literal principle of Maddy McDaniel stepping away, I wasn't expecting it at all.
So let me first say, I love Maddie Mouse. I love her smile. I love what she brings to the team. In the 2024-25 season, so in January of 25, in Austin, she took a picture with my daughter. They look like they could be sisters. Big, beautiful smile. And I thought she played with a lot of grit, in particular in that UConn game with her and Raven both on the floor at the same time. But she's not had the smoothest career at South Carolina. There have been more than one suspension. There's been a lot of missed games and at times uneven performance. And now all of a sudden the pressure to potentially be South Carolina starting point guard on maybe the deepest and most talented roster Dawn Staley has ever had. But I think it's a hit. And so we don't know if it's permanent. Let's say that. We don't know.
Correct.
She did not announce that she was sitting out this season like Ashlyn did, to recover. Part of Ashlyn's was physical. I think part of Maddy's is physical. She's just not the biggest person, and she's battled a knee, a leg injury. As well as other things. And so for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to put a line through her name, and we're going to say, how does Dawn Staley, here's the question, how does Dawn Staley fill the point guard position if Maddy Mouse is not a part of this team?
Yeah, I want to hit on that last point a little bit. To the timeline of it, yeah. To your point, she hasn't said in when/if. I guess technically you can include an if there. She'll return, and South Carolina told me in an official capacity that there is no current timeline for her return either. So for the sake of the exercise, let's assume she doesn't come back for this coming season. I don't know. I feel like in my immediate gut reaction was, Jersey Robinson is someone who has the capabilities to play point guard. Agat McKeer is someone who has the capabilities to play point guard, and we saw her do that some last year. But, and I know that freshmen starting in the SEC is not groundbreaking. Freshman starting for South Carolina is not groundbreaking. But I don't necessarily see Jersey starting at point guard right away. Of those two, I would probably give it to Agat maybe. But also, someone like Tessa Johnson is also fully capable of bringing the ball up the court. So I think my gut reaction would be, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like by committee at first, because at the end of the day, you're going to need to find someone who can do it day in and day out. Granted, that's probably what these next couple of months are for. But I would argue that just about every guard on that roster is capable of being a point guard in the literal sense of bringing the ball up the court, navigating and directing the offense. I think the most experienced in Dawn's system out of all of them, if you chose, that would go to Tessa. So I don't know. It's intriguing for sure. It makes you think, dang, like maybe we should have gotten a point guard, like a true point guard out of the portal. But also, if you're on that staff, I doubt that the thought of Maddy stepping away for some certain amount of time and possibly not being here next season was probably not in their minds, and I wouldn't fault them for that. So, yeah, I think that the top candidates will probably be some combination of Jersey, Agat, and Tessa, but also knowing that it'll probably be by committee and literally anyone can do it.
I agree. The South Carolina second national championship team, Destiny Henderson, went out for about 8 to 10 games, and you had 6'4" Letitia Amihir, aka LA, running the point, and that worked out pretty good. Joyce Edwards, I think, is capable of being a point forward type of player. Mm-hmm. And so my immediate reaction, I went to Jersey Robinson because I don't think Dawn Staley has had a guard like her. And I will add, like Ty Harris, she did not start the season, her freshman season, as a starting point guard. Yeah. Bianca Cuevas-Moore did. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of the season, they made the switch to Ty Harris, and they won a national championship. And quite frankly, Ty Harris, as a senior, got robbed of, as did Kiki Herbert Harrigan and the rest of that team, with the freshies, with 3 freshman starters.
Yep.
Zia
Became
Cook.
one of the best, if not the best, point guards in program history.
Yes, that's right. And so my thing, and then the more I've thought about it, because you look at the weight room and you look how much bigger Jersey Robinson, you look at how she's attacked the weight room.
Yeah.
And the maturity, even though she's still 17 years old, it really doesn't make sense. She's kind of like a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, she's got the psychological and the physical makeup. I don't know if you can remember B.J. Mackey, but B.J. Mackey was a big physical guard that could get in the lane. And I still remember in Atlanta at the SEC tournament, he shot over 20 free throws in one game because they just couldn't stop him. And I go back and watch the Nike Hoop Summit, and I watched Jersey Robinson wowing me with elevating everybody around her, making no-look passes, making the right pass for the easy play, playing with pace. And I love all that. But for Dawn Staley, I think it's, and I'll say this, like when I think of Gotti, I think of the NCAA tournament and just a bucket getter. Like, I don't think you want to take that off of her, honestly. Tessa Johnson was the best three-point shooter in college basketball last year. But the more I think about it, defense matters. That's why Jordan Lee is there, the athleticism. She is a lockdown defender. Gotti is a great defender. And so I don't know where Jersey Robinson will fit on that spectrum because she is in high school been a bucket getter.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's going to be, it may be Tessa, even though, look, she can initiate the offense because South Carolina is going to play inside out with the plethora of post players.
Yeah.
And you can still get actions for her to have catch and shoot threes off of that.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing how much Dawn Staley values defense, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Tessa. Her defense was kind of evolving, hit or miss. I thought it was great at the end of the season in the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be Tessa Johnson, Gotti, and Jordan Lee in the starting lineup with Chloe Kitts and somebody else. Maybe it's Joyce Edwards. Maybe it's Ashlyn Watkins. Maybe it's Allie Turnabees. I don't know. But the depth will be amazing there. And then I think that will give Jersey time to adjust to the defensive acumen and the level to which you have to play defense to play for Dawn Staley. But offensively, she's shown her ability to be a playmaker and be strong in the mid-range and get to the basket and then always finding the open player.
Yeah, I think everything you just said goes back to the whole, I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches depth-wise. And, yeah, I mean, it kind of – like I'm sure you don't want to do, point guard by committee, but if you have the capability to do it, to figure out, okay, now we're going to rock with just this one person doing it, then why not? Like, I know South Carolina's non-conference schedule is not full of cupcakes. Like, there are a couple. This isn't, like 7 Mississippi School of the Blinds and then bang Southern Cal and then UConn. Like, this is a tough schedule that they have. But I think I like the idea of, a Gotti and Lee and Tessa being the first 3 guards out there. Because then you do, like, to your point, give Jersey some time to figure out the defensive side of playing in college and playing in the SEC. Because yeah, I mean, to your point, there are no really offensive questions with Jersey Robinson. We know she's talented. I talked with her high school coach before, and that was like, bang, she can score at all three levels. I've talked to people at ESPN and recruiting analysts. Yes, offense is not a problem with Jersey Robinson, but also at the high school level, like, defense hasn't necessarily been an issue either because she's an extremely physical guard. So it's really just a matter of what all can translate to the college level. So I don't know. I think it'll probably be by committee, maybe. I'm not sure. I guess, we'll figure it out here eventually. But I think the fact that you have the depth to play with it early on in the season is helpful. Whereas, if you're down Maddy and Jersey, then it's Maddy and insert other guard here. It gets a little bit more complicated. But I mean, hell, all else fails, run two guards out there and three bigs. Like, you can get creative, and I am not going to trust my little basketball mind over Dawn Staley's. That is for sure. I will trust whatever she's got going on.
I mean, you can do that because we've seen Joyce Edwards expanding to the 3-point line, Chloe Kitts, ball handling, 3-point shooting. There are times they can play on the wing, which allows you to get bigger. And I just think Allie Turnabees is a unicorn, and I can't wait to see what she does this year, as well as Ashlyn. And my gosh, the big O, Olivia Edwards, maybe a bigger freak athlete than Ashlyn coming out of high school, which is crazy to say.
Mm-hmm. If you want to get crazy, you can go Tessa and Jordan Lee, and then Joyce, Chloe, and Ashlyn. Swap out any of the last three for Turnabees or Edwards. And don't forget Adele Tagg's there. I mean, you can put Adele Tagg in the lineup if you want.
That's right. And
so,
Kelsey Andrews, who started every game for the 18 and under Team USA and the FIBA America Cup.
Exactly. Hell, throw Kaylee Wynn in there. Like, I mean, you have the luxury of such a deep post that if it's okay, we don't have. I mean, the combinations are absolutely endless, and they're all extremely talented players. So, I mean, that's what I would assume is this next month of August, and then once practice starts, I think late September is when that typically starts. And then you've got a whole nother month after that before you even play an exhibition game or a real game. I mean, it's one of those things where it sucks, and I hope Maddie's okay and is working through whatever she's got to deal with. But from a South Carolina perspective, you've got all the time in the world to adjust to her potentially not being there. But also, it's early enough that if she does decide to come back after like a month or two away, I feel like she could probably seamlessly just jump right back in.
I agree. I mean, I will say this. In an ideal world, I've always viewed Mouse as a change of pace off the bench player who would play about 19 or 20 minutes per game, which is what she did last year. Mm-hmm. I think this is critical time that she's going to miss. Let's say if it's 2 months, because when you turn on the tape, she tends to get herself in trouble by over penetrating, and she doesn't have the best peripheral vision, but she doesn't turn the ball over. 12 more assists, and she would have led the NCAA in assist to turnover ratio. So I think it's interesting. There's no limits to the possibilities, just like you said. So one thing I did want to ask you about before I let you go is, so a couple weeks ago, Gino Auriemma was on a podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. With a guy that spent decades at, and I'm going to have to let you finish this because I got a sign for something at my door. talked about officiating, and he just can't let it go about South Carolina, and I'll be right back. This is crazy.
Yeah, no. So basically, this is crazy. Gino was on a podcast and had some more complaints about officiating. It seems he cannot ever let it go. I'm trying to approach it professionally, but I mean, Gino complained about the officiating, kind of said it was too, I guess you could say, favorite towards South Carolina. But it's one of those things. I mean, this happened in April. Like, it is fully July now. I can't believe we're still talking about this. He also said something about saying that physicality, and this is me paraphrasing, but essentially the physicality like level of a team. Do you remember this part, Keith, where he essentially said something along the lines of physicality of a team isn't something to like flex or brag about? And I'm like, that is the biggest load of whatever you want to call it, insert derogatory adverb here or whatever, like that. Like, what are we talking about? That has been like, it's genuinely, I was dumbfounded by the fact that this keeps coming up. It's one of those things that, like, we've sat here, both people have straight up said, hey, we're turning the page, and we're still here talking about it. Like, what? And I know in a way I'm making it worse by the fact that I had to write an article about it, but like, move on. Like, you lost. I'm sorry. That sucks. Move on. Like, it's frustrating. And also I feel for Dawn in the sense of Dawn has constantly taken the high road on these things and has continued to do so with this specific instance. And I'm like, if I was Dawn, I'd be pissed off. I'd want to say something about it. I understand she can, but I understand she won't, and that's probably the better thing to do. She'll get asked about it in November before they play. I guarantee you, if it's not me, someone will ask her, because that's our job and we have to. And then they'll go and play you
at SEC Media Days.
Yeah, like
that may be the first question.
It is. It's ridiculous. Like, the fact that we're still sitting here talking about it after both teams have said we're turning the page, yada yada yada. But from, friends that I had on the UConn beat, I'm like, why are we still talking about this? And they're like, Gino holds a grudge. Like, there's no easier way to put it. That's just kind of how he is, and got to live with it. It's frustrating. It's dumb, in my opinion. But I mean, he is entitled to his opinion as a multi-time national champion, Hall of Fame coach. I just think that he would probably be better suited to move on from it. But again, he's not going to listen to me. He can do whatever he wants.
So I think, like, if they were doing a redo of Grumpier Old Men, it would be Gino Auriemma and Vic Schaefer as Walter Matthau and Jack Lemon. So I listened to the entire podcast. And so in the context, the question was about officiating.
It was about WNBA officiating.
Right, about WNBA officiating. And I thought he gave a great answer, because he's like, look, the games are being called a certain way because somebody's telling the officials that's how they want the games called.
Yeah. And another point that he said during that, he said something about like officials being rated or something. And I'm like, is there an internal like official rating system that coaches have access to that they're not talking about? Because I'm sure officials are rated by like the officials union or the NCAA or something. But I didn't know if that was like something that coaches have access to or what. I heard that. I was like, what are we talking about? Am I just completely left behind in something that I should know about?
So there is, and Gino mentioned that's when he flipped the script.
Yeah, exactly. That's when he got off track about the WNBA and started complaining again.
But before that, he took time to throw shade on Caitlin Clark, mentioning that she and Paige Beckers came out the same year, and it was coming out of COVID, and the fact that, at the end of their freshman year, if you asked anybody who is Caitlin Clark, nobody would have known, because Paige Beckers was the National Freshman of the Year. And I think Paige is a better professional player. Caitlin Clark she puts eyes on the league, but she is the most belligerent, entitled player in the history of the WNBA, because she's now at 7 technicals. But you see the viral clips, you follow the same people, you see her dropping F-bombs and getting right in officials' faces, and they don't do a damn thing. Bro, if she did that to me, she would be tossed. It just wouldn't be a technical. She would be gone. And they don't do it. I mean, you cannot drop F-bombs on an official and not get tossed from the game. Plus, she's the 3rd best player on her team at best. But
I don't know about the F-bombs. That I see coaches do it all the time. I guess maybe it's different with players, and that was another thing that Gino brought up.
But it's different when you walk right up in an official's face and say, you got to be blanking kidding me. That's a effing, I mean, you, as a player, a collegiate player, now it's different in the NBA, because that's grown men talking to other grown men. But I mean, still, then he mentioned, I just played a Final Four game, and the 3 officials, none of them had any business being in that game because of where they were rated. And I got to say, I didn't recognize a single official. And if I did, I was like, why in the world is that guy calling this game? And to Gino's point, they did swallow the whistle. I mean, Johnson. It was a
physical game.
Raven Johnson told Sarah Strong, not today, big girl. You a sophomore. I'm a 5th-year senior, and I'm an extension of my coach. And I'm tougher than you, and I'm going to show you you are not posting me up. And she mauled her, and they could have called some fouls. But nobody tore Sarah Strong's jersey. And UConn got away with some very physical fouls that were not called. In particular, that one play under the basket where there was a mad scramble for the ball, where South Carolina got assaulted 3 or 4 times. And then they finally got it out and looked up and threw it to Gotti, and she just raced by everybody for a layup. But, hey, you know what? I rewatched on when it was South Carolina Takeover Day, South Carolina's Elite 8 game with TCU. In the second quarter, TCU did not have a single foul until 10 seconds when they committed a foul to force South Carolina to have to inbound it to try to slow them down from getting another shot. Dawn Staley didn't say a word about that. I mean, South Carolina did win by like 28 points because they blew them out in the fourth quarter. But at halftime or in the third quarter, when Holly Rowe or whoever it was talked to her, I don't think it's Holly Rowe, she didn't say a thing about it. You know, Gino, he can't let it go. He embarrassed himself with Holly Rowe. He embarrassed himself at the end of the game. He embarrassed himself at the podium. He embarrassed himself in the locker room after the podium. The first apology was for crap. He didn't even mention Dawn Staley's name. The second apology was decent. Then his first media hit, he goes right back to it again. And now on this podcast. And it's just like, I'm supposed to be the king after I had AZ, Paige, and Sarah. Nobody's supposed to beat me again. I'm supposed to go on this run, and he can't accept the fact that it is Don Staley, and he is an angry old Luigi Italian dude who sits in his house, sips his red wine at night, and is probably throwing darts at a picture of Don Staley.
Yeah, my thoughts on the whole thing are pretty much like I get, having complaints about a physical game. It was a physical game, but it was a good basketball game, and it was completely marred by respectfully, it was a temper tantrum at the end. And then to go into the press conference and, effectively gaslight everybody about the handshake thing. And then, Sarah Strong ended up saying that it was her who tore her jersey. It was all after which is insane to say, after the second and third apologies about it. I was, all right, let's move on. And, it's unfortunate that it keeps coming back up because it was a good game. And it was just completely – and, here we are 4 months later talking about not really the game, but the last 2 seconds. I think there was literally almost less than a second left on the clock when this happened.
It was.
And here we are 4 months later talking about it. And, I get it. I'd be frustrated too if I lost and I felt like there were officiating reasons or whatever about it. But I do think it's kind of ridiculous to keep talking about it months later. But it's happened twice now, and it'll probably happen one more time before we get to the season, and it'll probably happen again in November. And at the end of the day, ain't nothing we can do about it. It's dumb, and it sucks that it takes away from what was a good game and, and everything. It takes away from the great basketball that was being played, and that Don has to keep taking the high road on it. But I don't know.
Hey, how about the fact that AZ Fudd was 3 for 15 and Sarah Strong was 4 for 19 or 20? How about that?
Yeah. It was
how about How about Kaylee Heckle missing a wide open layup down the lane, and then it was I felt bad for her because she just broke down like a 5-year-old that somebody just slapped their ice cream cone out of their hand. But anyway,
I think that's what I wrote the next day was that it was a defensive masterclass, just completely no one will remember that part of the game. They'll remember the dumb stuff at the end, and it's unfortunate that that's how it is.
No doubt. Michael, I can't thank you enough for jumping on and for waiting patiently and for all the great stuff you do. Tell people where they can follow you and get your stuff.
Thank you very much, Keith. Twitter is MC Sauls. Instagram is by.mcsauls. You can read everything I write at the state newspaper, Go Gamecocks, the women's basketball section of the website, and football. Continue to support local journalism, whether it's the state or my competitors, but my colleagues and friends on the South Carolina beat who do a great job. We all do work really hard to cover South Carolina to the best of our ability. So I appreciate any and all support. And Keith, thank you very much for having me on.
So are you going to Paris?
We are looking at flights. We are pricing flights right now. Money's
so
a little
from
tight
Austin,
in journalism.
Austin to Paris and back right now is under $850.
Wow. When I looked the week of the 4th was the last I looked. And it was around 1,000. So yeah, we're pricing things. We're trending towards going. We just got to finalize, when we'll get there and all that good stuff. And I personally, so we'll see.
All right. Well, Michael, be well, and we hope you'll keep coming back and bringing your great insight. And we love the Atlanta Braves cap. Hopefully, a trade for a starting pitcher is in the works. And be well. And thanks for all the great stuff you do covering Gamecock women's basketball and all the other stuff at the state. And hopefully we'll catch up with you down the road.
There you go. Thanks, Heath. Have a good one.
Yep. That was Michael Sauls. I apologize. The weird jet to the front door. But people that are members of Gamecock Pod Daily, they understand I have a special medication I have to take, and it comes by FedEx, and I have to sign for it. It's not a mental illness medication, although a lot of people probably think it is. So I need to thank our good friends at Nana's Porch, your go-to for all your catering needs, for sponsoring the show today. Nana's Porch is servicing the greater Charlotte, Fort Mill, Rock Hill, Lancaster area. They are your go-to for all your catering needs, whether it's a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event, a rehearsal dinner. It doesn't matter if it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Nana's Porch will work with you to customize your menu. They will deliver unparalleled customer service and a delicious spread that will have all the people at that event saying, where in the world did you get that great food? So you can go to the homepage at nanasporch.com, NANASPORCH. I strongly urge you to support this Gamecock owned and operated business, and we appreciate our relationship with them and for sponsoring all our shows on Gamecock Pod Daily. Thanks to Walker Gaskins. Thanks to Michael Sauls, and to all of you who are listening live or who will watch later or listen on Apple, Spotify, or directly on the Believe podcast network. We are the South Carolina podcast for the SEC and their podcast network. This will be up there a little bit later on today. So until next week, and remember, hit the subscribe button. Tell all your Gamecock friends, get them to subscribe, like the show, follow us on the socials at KAllsep, ALLSEP, at Gamecock Pod. Big things are happening, and we could be nearing an announcement sometime in August that is going to be a game changer. So stay tuned for that. We are the authority. Just like John Whittle is the authority on Gamecock baseball, we are the authority on Gamecock women's basketball here. Nobody covers it better. I'm a former basketball coach who spent the first 14 years of my career doing it. I still do it. And so we thank all the fams for tuning in when we have our women's basketball guests on, and we'll continue to provide unparalleled insights, analysis, and coverage of that, and all things Gamecocks, especially Kevin Schnall. What a roster that dude has put together. I just want to say, Kevin Schnall, thank you for coming to the University of South Carolina. Thank you for putting together maybe the best staff in the country. And for, I think, as long as the pitching staff stays healthy, this will be the best Gamecock baseball roster in over a decade. And he's done it, bringing in dudes out of the transfer portal, adding some high school guys, getting Elaine, Gomez, Godinho, the catcher on campus, the Wake Forest transfers, including shortstop Ethan Bass, who picked the Gamecocks yesterday, who was a top 100 MLB guy, Slade Bird, who turned down $500,000 and said, no, you're going to have to give me a lot more to get drafted, from Hilton Head, who's coming to campus, who can play outfield and infield. He's a utility player, fiery guy, who's his older brother's in the Clemson, or maybe it's his uncle. Well, I think it's his older brother, maybe Clemson Baseball Hall of Fame. Maybe it's his uncle. Yeah, it's his uncle. It's his mom's brother. So thank you, Kevin Schnall, and thank you, Jeremiah Donati, for everything you do. Jeremiah Donati does not get enough credit. And once this roster is completed, I think they'd like to add one more JUCO pitcher. We'll get John Whittle back on to break down the roster. And nothing really unexpected happened in the draft other than Elaine coming to campus to really give you a great catcher rotation. And now shortstop may be just as good. So all things Gamecocks here on Gamecock Pod Live and Gamecock Pod Daily. Until next week, God bless, go Gamecocks, and God protect our troops and bless our country. Until then, Keith Alsep saying I'm out of here.